Eers and Beers, episode 43, What's on Tap? A backbreaking loss in Stillwater and what looks like the finalization of the offensive coaching staff for the football team. But first, as always, what are we drinking? I'm Wesley Euler, one half of the Eers and Beers podcast. I know it's the weekend pod here, so you're thinking, where's Mr. Adam Crowley? Well, unfortunately, the Crow Man had some technology issues this morning. Most of you know. We both work for iHeartRadio. Adam is an update anchor for the iHeart Sports Network. He was on this morning doing his updates and his computer crashed and burned on him. So due to the wonders of technology, unfortunately, no Mr. Adam Crowley today. So you just got me. And as always, what are we drinking? It's early. You know, we shuffled some things around to try and make this tandem podcast work. But eventually just had to kind of go with it here. So it's early Sunday morning. It's about 8:30 a.m. on Super Bowl Sunday as I record this. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I'm just drinking a big, tall mug of Tim Hortons coffee, my favorite K-cup. Salute. Drank enough beers, honestly, yesterday, to be fair, or at least to hold me off until the Super Bowl. You know, we had the basketball game at 2:00, which sent me into a spiral, of course. And then in the evening, UFC last night. Izzy getting another win. Fun fight with Derek Lewis. Yeah, there were some beers consumed yesterday. So I'm all right starting off the day today with a big, tall cup of coffee. If you are watching on YouTube, you can see it's a nice little 125th WVU football anniversary mug that I'm drinking out of here. All right, no more dilly-dallying. Dilly-dallying. No more delays here. Let's get right into it. A frustrating loss, a backbreaking loss in Stillwater, in a game that was pretty close to a must-win against a team that had nothing to play for, and you lost by 23 points. It's not any easier to say here the next day. That game was over the second they inbounded the ball to start the second half. For the second time in 3 games, you had just an absolute dud of a second half. You know, Texas Tech, where they shot 12.5% from the field in the second half. And then yesterday against the Cowboys, where they shot, I think, 26% from the field in the second half. And the most frustrating part was, you know, it felt like we had turned a corner, right? You get that 7-game losing streak and just a hellacious schedule in there. And yeah, you still should have gotten at least a couple of those games, but you make it through that. You beat Iowa State and you're feeling confident. You look ahead at the schedule, 8 games left, a lot of winnable games in there. And you feel like, you know what? All right, we've turned a corner. Let's go stack some wins here. And instead of turning a corner, now it feels like you're just in a cul-de-sac going in circles. I was very confident coming into this game. I thought we'd turn the corner. And instead what we got was another just an absolute nothing second half for the second time in 3 games. And now all of a sudden, you've lost 8 of your last 9, and you are 100% on the outside looking in of the big dance of March Madness. You know, before yesterday, you had 8 games left. Including yesterday, you had 8 games left. You needed to win at least 4 of those to give yourself a shot. 5 and 3 would have had you probably feeling comfortable on Selection Sunday, especially if you're able to get a win in the Big 12 tournament. Now you got 7 games left, and you have to have at least 4 of those to stay in the conversation. It's disheartening. You know, and the most disheartening part, honestly, is what do we say all year? You know, all year, even when things weren't going great, we talked about the fight, the effort, the heart of this basketball team. We all said things like, they're not the most overly talented, they're not the most gifted, but you can't kill this team. And we love to watch that. We love that dog, that fight, that effort, that heart. Well, this was the first time all year where it felt like they just quit, where they just gave up. And that's the most disheartening part. And again, the fact that it happened in what felt like a must-win game for you, against a team that was under 500 and has nothing to play for. They can't play in the Big 12 tournament. They can't make it to the NCAA tournament. They're disqualified. Not only did you lose, you lost by 23 points. I mean, they were throwing alley-oops. They were emptying the bench. They were having fun. And, you know, I think the frustrations boiling over there at the end of the game between Gabe and Bob Huggins kind of perfectly sum up everything where we are right now. And I did just a quick second on that. Everybody, of course, on Twitter, social media, wherever you join your WVU community, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Instagram, whether it's some of the really cool Facebook groups that Mountaineer Nation has created, that WVU fans have populated all over Facebook. A lot of people arguing about, is that a bad look? You know, Bob Huggins stands up and clearly you don't have to be a good lip reader to see him say, get the F off the court to Gabe, as Gabe's kind of pleading his case to Bob. I'm not looking into that too much personally. You've lost 8 of your last 9 games. Your season's slipping away. The head coach is frustrated. Gabe is frustrated. Gabe cares. I mean, you know, for anything you want to say about his game and how, you know, it was foolish of him to get those double technicals. Gabe cares. And obviously Bob Huggins cares. That's why he has over 900 wins and has been doing this for so long. I wouldn't look into that too much. It's too emotional guys. It's too fiery guys. They're pissed off because a game that, you know, even though you're down 6 points at halftime, you still felt like you probably should have had that one. It's slipping away. The game's over. It's the final moments. Gabe's emotional. Hugs is emotional. I wouldn't look too much into it other than that. Do you know what? Speaking of Bob Huggins, let's have this conversation for a second, because it's another one that everyone's having. What's your thoughts on Bob Huggins? Is he past it? Is it time to say thank you but move on? It's another conversation that's being had all over WVU circles. I will say this, like I'm not there yet. But it feels a little concerning how, you know, just comfortable and complacent it feels like this coaching staff is. And that's not just the Huggy Bear. That's not the guy, the future Hall of Famer with 900 wins. That's everyone. From Larry Harrelson on down. There hasn't been a ton of change to Bob Huggins' staff in Morgantown over the years. Like Billy Hahn left a couple years ago, and we all thought that was a big deal. But was it really? Like there just hasn't been a lot of change. When you're as successful as Bob Huggins has been, and when you're kind of that, we all know the type of person that Bob Huggins is. He's a my way or the highway kind of guy. He's Frank Sinatra. I do it my way. There's some stubbornness there too, right? Especially when you have had all the success that Bob Huggins has had. You earn that in a way. But it's a fair question to be asking at this point. Again, I always, anytime I feel like I have to do this, anytime I even slightly criticize Bob Huggins, I always preface it with saying, you know, like, this guy's forgotten more about basketball than I'll ever know. There's a reason that he has 900 wins. But again, sometimes that can work the other way too, where you get a little too complacent, you get a little too comfortable, particularly when you're in or at your alma mater in a state like West Virginia, where we all love Bob Huggins. I mean, the dude walks on water. We'd all chop off a limb for Bob Huggins. But he also, despite all that, and while he always deserves respect, even if this team doesn't win a game the rest of the season, Bob Huggins deserves respect and should always be treated as such, as our legend. But I keep coming back to this. You remember that line in Remember the Titans? You know, when Julius Campbell and Petey are fighting at training camp at 2-a-days. Sorry, I say Julius Campbell and Petey. It was Gary Bertier. I knew I messed something up there. When Gary Bertier and Julius Campbell are fighting after practice at 2-a-days, they're arguing in the little hallway to the locker room there. Gary Bertier says, that's the worst attitude I ever heard, man. What does Julius Campbell say? Attitude reflects leadership. And you know, when you sense what some of that feels, just comfort and complacency with the coaching staff, and then you see the team go out there and give their worst effort of the season, I can't help but think about those things, because attitude does reflect leadership. This is the first time in my life, I'm going to be 31 years old in 2 weeks here. It's the first time in my life I remember questioning the effort of a WVU basketball team. We've had bad teams in the past. There's been times where we haven't been very good, but the effort was never in question like it is now. So let me know how you feel about that. I keep coming back to that. Attitude reflects leadership. I think we all agree that the effort isn't there. And honestly, anytime when you lose 8 out of 9 games, it's on more than just when you lose 7 in a row, when you lose 8 out of 9, it can't just be on the players at that point. You've got to ask some bigger questions. I think that's fair. Again, I'm not trying to crush Bob Huggins and his staff or anything. I think I'm just asking some appropriate questions at the moment. And Hugs was emotional post-game. And we all know, like, listen, I want to be very clear with that too. I know Bob Huggins cares, but you can still care and be a little too comfortable at the same time. Maybe there's a Neil Brown type situation that needs to happen where there's some forcing the hand of some shakeup to the coaching staff going forward. Those are all conversations that we'll have this offseason when we see how this thing plays out. But I mean, the second half, again, it's second time in 3rd games that you have an absolute nothing, a 0 performance in the second half. And that just can't happen. Jalen Bridges, no points in the second half. Taz and Sean McNeil, I think, combined for 6 points in the second half. Ain't going to get it done. Even against a team like Oklahoma State, one of the few that I think you're clearly better than in the Big 12 this year. Hey, we're not great, but Oklahoma State is not a good basketball team either. Certainly not one that should be beating us by 23 points. I'm rooting for the kid, man. I know everything he's gone through. I know the Achilles injury really set him back. But it's hard to watch Isaiah Cottrell continue to get significant minutes for this team. It's hard to watch Keddy continue to get significant minutes anymore. Kedrian Johnson, both of those guys. I mean, combined, they played 29 minutes for you. Keddy, 13 minutes. Zay, 16 minutes. You got 5 combined points from those guys. It's just not good enough. You got 3 combined rebounds from those guys. I never crush our players. That's just not my thing. And I know that's been a big debate amongst Mountaineer Nation. Well, they're just college kids. Well, they're getting paid with NIL now. Well, they should just stay off Twitter. I'm never going to crush college kids. I just ain't going to do it. All right. I think that's part of what makes college sports more enjoyable than professional sports. Yeah. In professional sports, when it's a 30-year-old who's making $20 million a year, you could feel pretty comfortable criticizing that guy. College, though, it's always felt like you try and encourage and uplift your teams as opposed to, doing some of the demeaning that we do in professional sports when things aren't going well. But I'm pretty much out on those two right now, playing significant minutes, because it's clear that our best 5 does not include them on the court. Give me more of the young guys. Give me more Seth Wilson. Give me more King. Give me more Okonkwo. Give me more Kobe. I think that's where we're at this point in the season. This team lacks an inside presence so bad. Like we all love Gabe. I love Gabe. You love Gabe. On any good team, you have players like Gabe. If you want to win a conference tournament, if you want to go to a Final Four, you need players like Gabe. But we're asking him to do too much. It's like we're asking him to fight above his weight class, to use a UFC reference. He should be the John Flowers type guy on this team, right? But instead, we're asking him to be a significant contributor, and it's just a little bit above his skill set. Gabe's a good player. You need guys like that on every team, but I think the role we're asking him to play is a little too great because we just lack that inside presence. Cottrell hasn't been able to develop for whatever reason. Again, I give him the benefit of the doubt. Between freshman and sophomore year is when college kids put on that weight. They spend the whole offseason with the strength trainer. And instead of being able to do that, Zay was rehabbing from a serious Achilles injury. He still kind of looks like a freshman out there. He gets pushed around a little bit. He's He doesn't have that thickness with 2 C's to him. But you can't do the insanity thing anymore at this point. You're 14-10. Your season is on life support. You have to win Monday night at Kansas State, or this thing's done and dusted. You need your best 5 out there as often as possible. And I think it's pretty clear at this point, your best 5 doesn't include Isaiah and doesn't include Ketty. 7 games left now. You get 5 of those, I think you're in the dance. You need at least 4. Got to go 4-3 in these last 7 and win a game in the Big 12 tournament. So that would give you 19 wins. You'd be right near that 20 mark after playing just a hellacious schedule. But it feels like as we sit here today, you can kiss the big dance goodbye. You got an opportunity to turn it around still. Still get, big win against Kansas, big win against Texas. There's still opportunities out there. But, these Oklahoma States and these Kansas States, you need to be taking care of business as well, too. And they obviously didn't do that. It's been a tough year. You combine football and basketball. We're going to talk about football staff in just a minute here. You combine football and basketball. It's been a tough year for WVU athletics. Maybe the toughest if you combine, men's hoops and football in a decade since 2013. The Aaron Harris and Eric Murray years. The Ford Childress years. Ooh, I'm getting shivers just thinking about it. It's been a tough year. And I think we all thought, with the start that the basketball team had, again, I don't think any of us were fooling ourselves that this was a Final Four team. But we all thought it would be better than this. And particularly after the 12-1 start, 11-1 start. I don't think we thought that we'd be at this point having lost 8 of 9 games. It's frustrating. And the only way forward is to get Kansas State Monday night and then go from there. So go do it, damn it. All right, one more swig of this coffee, and we'll talk a little football staff. Then we'll get out of here and enjoy our Super Bowl Sunday. It looks like the football staff is finalized, at least certainly the offensive side of the ball. A little moving and shaking. Tony Washington has been hired as wide receiver coach. That spot vacated by Jared Parker when he went to Notre Dame, that Golden Domer. Tony Washington from Coastal Carolina is going to be your new WVU football wide receivers coach. Young guy. I think he's only 34, 35 years old. You look at the success that he had at Coastal Carolina. Their wide receivers put up big numbers over the last 2 years. That's been an explosive offense the last 2 years. That's been a ranked team who has beaten some good opponents over the last 2 years. I think this is a good hire. Young guy in Tony Washington. You need that balance on your staff, right? You have to have, in this day and age, diverse coaching staffs who can connect with all your different type of players. You got players coming from all across the country. We got players from England and Sweden on the roster, Germany, I believe. You got a punter from Australia. You've got, particularly on football teams where there's so many scholarships, there's so many guys at the collegiate level. You've got a lot of different personalities, a lot of different guys who come from everywhere. To bring in Tony Washington, a guy who's young still, and I think will relate to so many of these kids really well. That leadership, that balance, that diversity on your coaching staff is important. In this day and age, I think more than ever. So I'm excited about Tony Washington for a lot of reasons. I think he's one of those good, young, up-and-coming coaches. I think he'll be a nice balance to this coaching staff. You've got some veteran coaches that have been around for a while. You got young guys like Tony Washington who are only a couple years older than me, and this is their first real huge opportunity. I like the hire. I'm excited about the hire. With this, Sean Reagan, who was coaching the quarterbacks, he will be the team's new tight ends coach, and that kind of rounds out the staff. We had talked a little bit about how this would all shake out, how much of this was Graham Harrell's call, all those different things. But it's pretty clear the offensive staff has been revamped. You lose Trickett, you lose Parker, you bring in Harrell, you bring in Tony Washington. Let's get this offense humming, baby. I know, last thing here, there was some concern voiced, by Mountaineer Nation on Facebook, on Twitter, that, Sean Reagan is this the right thing to do, having him go from quarterbacks to tight ends when he doesn't have, I don't think, any specific tight end coaching experience? Here's where I'll come down on this. I talked about this when Jared Parker left, how, and kind of the same with Travis Trickett, how they're both very good recruiters, but I didn't necessarily feel that the units that they coached, the position groups that they coached, dramatically improved during their time at WVU. And how, yeah, you have to be able to recruit, but I think the development at a program like WVU is more important, because you're never going to recruit like Alabama or Ohio State or Clemson or Oklahoma. You got to be able to coach these guys up. That's something we discussed after Jared Parker left for Notre Dame. Like I said, I do think there's a balance, though. You need recruiters, obviously. You have to strike a balance there. And Sean Reagan is a proven recruiter. I mean, he was like the lead guy to get our baby Jesus Nico in Morgantown. And I do think quarterbacks, tight ends, that's not a drastic change. I mean, yeah, quarterback is a very specialized position in football, obviously, but these coaches on these staffs, they bounce around position groups a lot. Listen, in theory, having a guy coach the tight ends who doesn't have a lot of experience there isn't the best thing. But I do think you have to strike that balance. When you lost two of your best recruiters in Trickett and in Parker, you got to kind of play that game. You need guys in there who can coach your players up and make them better. But you also need guys who can recruit. It's a balance you have to strike. And I also think, too, Graham Harrell, if you look at what he did at USC, I mean, wow, his tight end usage was phenomenal. So I'm sure he'll have a say in that as well, too. But it looks like the offensive staff is finalized. You keep Reagan and kind of relocate him. You lose Parker. You lose Trickett. Wish those guys all the best. I'll say it again. I hope we get the Tricketts back in Morgantown one day, particularly Clint. I mean, we got to get him out of Huntington, that poor guy. You bring in Graham Harrell. You bring in Tony Washington. I'm excited to see how this all shakes out, starting with spring practices here before too much longer, and then obviously all culminating in the spring game. Maybe that's a good time to start plugging this now. Spring game a little over 2 months away. April 23rd is the spring game, 1:00 at Mountaineer Field at Milan Puskar Stadium. We're going to have a little Eers and Beers shindig, little Eers and Beers tailgate that day in the blue lot. So again, just to get it on your radar. But I'd love you guys to all stop by, say hello, drink a beer, put some faces to some names in the process. So just know, again, we'll tweet out, we'll roll out more specific plans and locations and all that. But just know, if you are somebody who's, a Mountaineer junkie like us, and you already know that you're going to the spring game, even though it's over 2 months away, just know if you need a place to tailgate, you're welcome to join us in the blue lot. So that'll do it for me today. Enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday. If you're listening to this, maybe on your commute or for your workout on Monday, we will have another reaction podcast after the Kansas State game. Win, lose, as soon as it's over, I'm going to turn this microphone on. And as always, we're going to get through it together. So that'll do it for me today. Cheers, everybody. Enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday. It's hard to hold out hope. I'm not completely ready to punt and give up on this season yet. But check back with me Monday night. Right here on the Eers and Beers podcast. Take care, everybody. Let's go Mountaineers. Let's go drink some beers.